Hi and welcome to Indigo Starfire. My name is Bevin, and in this video I'm going to be looking into the question, what can you do to heal yourself in preparation for healthy, high vibrational love to enter your life? There are 4 groups to choose from. Group 1 is the Obsidian heart. Group 2 is the Carnelian heart. Group 3 is the Sodalite heart. And group 4 is the Opalite heart. So if you want to take a moment to center, focus on your breathing, and feel whichever group, maybe multiple groups or perhaps all of the groups that you're most drawn to. I'll give you a minute to make your selection and then we'll get right into it. And there are timestamps in the description box of the video for each group if you would like to jump ahead. Hi, Group 1. You chose the Obsidian heart. So I'm just going to be using oracle cards for this deck. I'll start with this one and we'll get some introductory messages as far as what you can do to heal yourself in preparation for healthy and high vibrational love to enter your life. Okay, we have Journey, Answer the Call, and Hold Your Ground. So this idea of hold your ground is really bringing to mind this energy of providing yourself with vindication in any instances where you have not received closure for somebody. Some of you may have really been sort of like holding space, holding yourself in place in preparation or anticipation of someone to return with an offer of apology. You know, somebody discovering the grass wasn't greener on the other side and making their way back to you, regardless of if this has been sort of a long wait for you or a shorter waiting period. There is an energy here of something within you needing to almost no longer maintain this stance of active waiting. In some capacity, it's almost like if that vindication or apology is meant to come in from a certain person, then it is meant to come in like with this idea of journey further down the road. And so by you kind of operating as a placeholder in a sense, you're not making the movements necessary to reach that place on your own horizon where this individual, through a process of like growth and evolution, can then prepare themselves to meet you. And so it ties into this idea of having a lot more power in certain situations than you may have anticipated, but more so because sort of the focus of this reading is in preparation for healthy high vibrational love. More than just all of those moving parts of a certain individual or people from the past coming back around, to focus this very centrally on you. It is also this energy of needing to move, needing to, you know, literally sort of shift and redirect your focus. A lot of you may have been kind of like, again, ruminating on the past, having a very difficult time, maybe detaching from somebody energetically because there's a sense almost of what happened wasn't fair. It shouldn't have played out that way, especially if there's like third-party interferences that got in the middle of things, you know, or it's just a situation that never really got off the ground but had a lot of potential. Then there's almost a sense of being kind of just stuck in that sense of anticipation that like any day now I'll wake up and the reality of how this situation should have played out will be what is right in front of my face. And it's something with this answer the call that there may have been very overt or subtle signals encouraging you to go, to move, to evolve, to stretch beyond your limits, spread your wings and fly. Any things that have been coming in that are almost even like pushing you outside of your comfort zone in a lot of ways, unrelated to love, unrelated to matters of the past, just general sort of energies of evolution. There's a sense of almost being tethered in some capacity from reaching another horizon for yourself in your life in general, which then for a lot of you is going to ripple out into intersecting with that healthy and high vibrational love. There's a need to kind of just close the door, sort of sew up those wounds for yourself in whatever way that is possible. So in tandem with that, we'll see what else comes through in some of these other decks. So maybe there'll be some suggestions on how to do that. And just real quick before I move on to this next deck, this idea of journey is also tying into like some shamanic journey work, meditations to sort of, not just in terms of particular circumstances that you have, you know, maybe you're holding on to a lot of kind of unanswered questions, bitterness, resentment, you know, like waiting for that apology, waiting for this particular person to come back around. It's almost like the providing of that vindication and closure for yourself so you can open new chapters and step into new chapters. It may even kind of go further back than whatever this particular occurrence with this individual is. For a lot of you, there's some kind of like root issue, core issue, maybe an inner child wound, some kind of disappointment from early life, something you witnessed growing up, that in some way has created a sense of normal to where it may not even be necessarily your higher self that has been resonating with people that you identify as like your type. For example, this may really be the product of like a wounded aspect within yourself that responds to these situations, something within the frequency of other people that is almost like, it's kind of like trauma bonding, like a matched wounding. And so it's causing you almost to like be very stuck and not to be able to sort of heal and release and move forward, is because it's not just these situations. It's not just these particular kind of disappointments in love. It's something a lot further back and deeper within yourself. For a lot of you, this is even going to be like pre-love, pre-awareness of romance. It's something stemming from like the foundational aspects of you, where you're needing to almost take that shamanic journey deep into the roots of your own personal underworld, to discover kind of that genesis of where that blossomed out into, you know, a particular like archetype or frequency within you that in some way is matched or mirrored in disappointments in love that have kept you waiting, kept you holding on, kept you hanging on to, you know, maybe somebody feeling you, making you feel like an option, for example, ghosting you, blocking you, running, just being very fear-based, that there's some kind of root of fear within you that like resonated with that vibration. And, you know, everybody has their own sort of duty to themselves to do their core healing. And it feels like for some of you, you may be waiting on somebody else to heal enough to do the right thing, or, you know, to come back around maybe after karma has had its way with them, just to sort of, you know, provide you that sense of vindication and closure, but really for your own kind of like best interest, or to move toward that healthy and higher vibrational love. It's going within and sort of healing that root, that wound within you that was calling out and answered the call of that wounded part within another person or other people. Okay, so we have Winter's Dream, Gestation Period, Stranger, Curiosity, The Crossing, Initiation, and Perfect Storm, the courage to step into life. So this idea of like the perfect storm and the courage to step into life, this is really tying into this idea of where the wounded part within yourself has become the frequency or the gauge of normal, even within that storminess, even within that chaos, even within that disorder. You know, kind of like that disappointment, it resonates or rings true with like some aspect of disappointment disorder or lack within yourself, with this idea of like winter's dream that's been frozen in time. It's something deeply buried. It's like having to chip beyond layers of like ice and, even memories that may just be vague or foggy for you, that in some way it's become part of this frequency. It resonates at the core level. And even just, the experience of waiting, of kind of like holding in place, waiting for that person to come back around, waiting for that closure. Even if it's something where you've moved on, a degree of kind of like holding on to that resentment that has kind of like made you fearful of repeating circumstances like that, which then magnetizes in the self-fulfilling prophecy. So this idea of crossing is like stretching yourself beyond your comfort zone, moving over the threshold into some kind of new narrative for yourself. Understanding that kind of like change without begins with change within. It's tying in with this idea of like shamanic journey work, that crossing deep into your own underworld, deep into your distant memory. For some of you, you may want to work with a trained like shamanic healer or a therapist that is sort of has expertise or experience in like regression work in a certain manner, because a lot of this is not going to be, you can kind of accomplish some of it if you're sort of sitting there journaling and thinking back over your experiences, but a lot of this is going to be it's going to be almost achieved through hypnosis, or like a trance state, in a sense, that it's so like just deeply embedded in the molecules and the fibers of how you define love based on experiences that came from like very sort of root origin points. And in order to kind of like change the future that you're moving toward, to call in something of a higher caliber and vibration, there's a need to almost untether yourself from where you've been very grounded and kind of like growing from that point of distortion. This idea of like stranger and curiosity ties in as well with these sort of memories that might not be necessarily apparent. It may just be vague memories, but going kind of deeper beyond just sort of those surface sensations, or the snapshots that you have of what occurred, and really tracing into what was the feeling. Kind of like, what was the first time that you felt fear? What was the first time you felt abandoned? What was the first time you felt, misunderstood? And this can even tie back to, things as simple as, you might be thinking, okay, this has to do with some kind of like childhood memory, interactions with people. It may stem further than that. This may have to do with like infancy. Maybe you had parents that were busy, that were working. You were left kind of like, crying, unattended for periods of time. That can create this kind of like root or template of sort of like the fear or the expectation of people not meeting your needs. It's not that you need to continue to dwell and linger there, but it's almost like going within and kind of nurturing or coddling that inner child, creating a sense of wellness that you will keep showing up for you, and you do not require kind of like outside circumstances or individuals to do that. And when you create that kind of safety net for yourself, when you find, again, through these kind of like deep journey techniques, or sort of like shamanic journey techniques, or things having to do with hypnosis and kind of regression, going back into the deep cellular memory, into like the deeply embedded or buried memory, in a sense, you can create that wellness from within, which changes the frequency. It changes sort of how you're feeling about yourself, your sense of security, creating a closeness with yourself in your own skin, cultivating safety for yourself. A lot of root chakra work, speaking of sort of these root kind of core aspects of self, that when you cultivate this sense of your essential needs are met, then you are starting from the ground up, not resonating a frequency of kind of like lack or doubt or fear, but it's this certainty that, in this moment, in this space, in this body, I am safe, I am here, I am present. And when you build from that place, that sort of foundational level out, and it's coming from a vibration of, being very secure in the moment, it's a different kind of call that you are sending out to prospective, people who will reply to that, people who pick up that beacon and come in. They're going to be operating more from that frequency of, that core sense of stability and kind of wellness within themselves, rather than, responding to kind of this maybe sort of an upward projection of confidence. Some of you who have been sitting more in kind of like the ego space, sort of the idea of like faking it till you make it, which it sometimes works, but it can often mask, again, this like deeply embedded fear, which is really being stuffed down. It has like an artificial tendency or sort of an overtone to it. So you're needing to kind of like dig beyond that and really rebuild from the ground up in a lot of ways. Change that frequency, change that tune, change that bass harmony from which the other aspects of what you're vibrating out, what that resonates as, what that sounds like in terms of energy and frequency. And it is in that way of kind of like healing yourself, healing the base of your chakra tree and then working your way up, not just kind of remaining in the basement, but, sort of like crossing that threshold, moving the full chakra trees, but starting from the bottom, moving up. You then create sort of this template within yourself for a different kind of narrative that you're then calling into experience, almost from sort of this intuitive knowing from the top down, is kind of the way to sort of balance out and calibrate toward that healthier and reciprocal experience of love moving forward. So I'm going to get a couple more oracle cards for you just to close this out. Okay, we also have Lord Shiva, Divine Fusion, Unite with Sacred Synergy. And Goddess Minerva, Intelligence, I Harness My Full Potential. So this idea of like harnessing the full potential can really talk about some deeply embedded like fear of abandonment, fear of, kind of being left out in the cold, maybe for times when you were sort of like left out in the cold, or any kind of like stability, sense of security, again, unrelated to love. This can be situations of a volatile home life, for example, times when resources were very scarce, where safety was a factor, just like earlier in your experiences in this lifetime, that has sort of set the tone of build from the place of fear. And it's this idea of, limiting some potential. It's like a self-protectiveness. It's sending out the frequency of guardedness, which magnetizes in individuals who themselves, up to this point, may have also been kind of like guarded and fearful up to a certain extent. And so this idea of synergy is really also tapping into this notion of, kind of, again, these things unrelated to love in just your personal history, in your personal experience, in the foundational experiences, the creation of your personality, how you move through the world, your relationship with self. It's wrapping yourself in those loving arms, in that embrace, in whatever way was lacking. And it doesn't need to be something where it's like these grievous wrongs that occur. It's in whatever sort of like minor or major ways you have felt neglected at some point in time, healing that, validating that, not comparing your experience of lack or fear to others. It's a very personal experience. It's very subjective. And so, really kind of holding space for that, for your voice, for how that inner child had, experienced or internalized that wounding within. You then change that frequency to acceptance, to it's okay, I'm here now, I will protect you, all is well. And from that place, you're then shining a different kind of light. It's not, dimming things down in the essence of trying to keep what little, you have in reserve, and therefore sort of depriving yourself of the wholeness of what's available. It's coming forth, stepping forth into the next kind of chapter of your life, into that sort of higher vibration where a different kind of love can come into to you, and you're stepping forth with more of this authentic and fully articulated version of yourself, rather than kind of with these scattered pieces sort of left in the past, kind of tethered or tied to these experiences and examples of where, you know, there was not the meeting of needs, there was not, you know, the sense of being heard or appreciated or understood or respected or valued in whatever way that kind of manifested. You know, and again, especially if this is something where it's going back to like infancy, for example, you know, the needs of a baby are very black and white. And so, you know, it's not something that is a matter of kind of opinion or to kind of like gauge or judge that, but to just look at it very simply. Here was a lack. Now I'm putting plenty where there was lack. I'm now filling that space or that void or that hole within myself, paving over that, creating wellness and stability. And from this place of stability, from the ground up, building in a very different direction, reaching for a new potential from within first, which allows you to call forth a healthier and more high vibrational love to your experience in the material world. So I'm going to get some initials to close out this reading, and this can be a first, middle, or last name, or it can spell something out, just whatever resonates for you. Okay, we've got B, E, K, S, J, F, N, D, C, W, and H. So those are your messages. I hope that they resonated with you and that you enjoyed the reading. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, or share. If you'd like a personal reading, I offer them through my Etsy shop, and there's a link in the description box of the video for that. I offer a variety of pre-recorded video readings, written readings, and channeled letters. Turnaround time on everything is 5 to 7 days from the time of purchase. I also sell handmade jewelry, dream catchers, and sun catchers if you're interested in checking any of that out as well. And I've launched a second channel here on YouTube, which is called Lady of the Dawn Tarot. There's a link in the description box as well as in the channel section of my page for that. The format over there consists of pick-a-cards and general energy readings related to subjects such as spirituality, ascension, wellness, and self-love. So if any of that sounds interesting, I invite you to check that channel out. I thank you for your support there, as well as for your continued support here on this channel. I hope to see you again in another reading. Please take care and be well. Hi, Group 2. You chose the Carnelian heart. So I'm just going to be using oracle decks for this reading. I'll start with this one to get some introductory messages as far as what you can do to heal yourself in preparation for healthy, high vibrational love to enter your life. Okay, we have surrender the resistance, hold your ground, and stand for justice. So this hold your ground card came up in group 1. If you were drawn to that group, you may want to watch that after this group. There could be additional messages there for you. But it's just really tying into this idea of creating balance within yourself, some aspect of resistance that to maybe embody the full range of emotions within you. There may have been some sort of instances where you were almost too forgiving of people of the past, bearing too much of the weight upon your shoulders for what has gone wrong in connections in the past, making excuses for people, or again, just kind of like taking other people's unhealed behavior towards you, their projections towards you, just kind of absorbing that and using that as a template for your own kind of gauge of your worth. You know, this may have been something where, you know, this idea of kind of like deeply embedded sort of energies here with the idea of like hold your ground, something that is kind of buried within your own personal underworld. A lot of you may have experienced conditional love growing up where you had to almost prove yourself, prove your worth, fit a certain requirement in order to get that praise or validation. So tracing back to, you know, maybe kind of like early childhood or your experiences growing up within your family. Maybe there was a lot of competition between you and siblings, a lot of maybe parents pivoting siblings against one another, or, you know, really kind of comparing the accolades of, say, like a golden child against, you know, maybe the child that was a little more outside of the box, you know, didn't exactly fit that exact definition of, you know, success or normal. Maybe you yourself were that golden child and there was a lot of pressure on you to perform in some manner. And it feels that this is almost like it's become part of the frequency of how you first learn to sort of understand love. You have to give in order to receive was kind of, and give in a certain degree might have been sort of the narrative or the lesson that was taught from early on. And it may have really resulted in a lot of kind of codependency or people pleasing as far as like loving relationships are concerned. And there's a need to, you know, just kind of like move into this energy of understanding that you are worthy of healthy and reciprocal and high vibrational love exactly as you are. You don't need to do or to become anything. And some of you may have really dimmed your light for other connections, put your needs on the back burner in order for someone else to shine more brightly. You may have been dealing with people that were kind of emotionally immature, or even just kind of a beacon within yourself that was saying sort of, I am willing to prove my love. I'm willing to kind of like do anything to make myself appear lovable. This may have called in individuals or partners of the past that were very difficult to please, almost like nothing was good enough, or the sense of kind of like tantrums in order to sort of get attention, to leech energy in a certain way. You know, people who kind of in their own unhealed manner needed to have it all about them, needed the focus completely on them. And it feels that this may have sort of balanced out or fit this frequency within you of just, let me do what it takes to prove that I'm worthy, that I'm a type of person who's lovable, that I'm the type of person who sort of fits whatever that image of success is for particular partners. It may be something as well that you have sort of a historical tendency that when connections end, it leads to like a total rock bottom. A lot of you have been devastated to your core on multiple occasions when relationships have fallen apart. It's a sense of almost dissolving your own individuality or identity and sort of reshaping yourself into the image of what you perceive a partner would be looking for. And then kind of the aftermath of that is sort of like left with this illusion and trying to reconcile that with who you are truly within. So again, this idea of needing to trace that back. Where did that stem from? Where did that kind of that act of chameleoning stem from, to where you were made to believe that unless you presented a particular kind of like face to the situation, unless you were operating at a certain frequency or producing a certain series of results, that somehow love would be withdrawn, love would be taken, or it wouldn't be given. It wouldn't be like good enough. You wouldn't be deserving of it. And it's you know, something to where when you create that sense of validation that, you know, you're best exactly as you are, like you're, you know, trying the most, being your authentic self, that is good enough. It is worthy of praise. It is worthy of acceptance. You know, you create that kind of solidity within your own identity as you are. You know, you are yourself, and the world shifts and adjusts accordingly, rather than sort of like you moving in a fluid state from kind of like dynamic to dynamic, relationship to relationship. This may even be something that kind of ripples out in a larger sense to like friendships, your relationships with family. Maybe it's even a strained relationship with that idea of like competition between siblings, or some kind of like a strained relationship with a parent that still gives conditional love, that there may need to be some kind of like retooling in a way of these dynamics, maybe distance and space that's that's necessary, so you can go in and really just create this solidity within yourself of who you are exactly in this moment. Both your strengths and your weaknesses are good enough, and that's kind of like a key step to magnetizing in a different type of partner. So I'm going to dig a little bit deeper into this and see what else you can do to kind of kickstart this healing journey, or further steps you can take along that road. Okay, we have Fool's Embrace, transmuting pain. Caterpillar, opportunity. Net caster, preparations come to fruition. Beloved, radical acceptance. And Winter's Dream, gestation period. So that Winter's Dream card also came up in group 1. So another confirmation, if you were drawn to that group, that there could be additional kind of information or messages for you there. But that is, again, talking about this, as I was saying, it's the same kind of interpretation for that card in group 1, just in a different sort of lens, or at a different kind of aspect. But it's this idea of things deeply buried and kind of embedded, frozen in time in the past, things that you might not even sort of relate to having to do with your love life. You know, if this is something that it has to do with, you know, a parent that was hard to please, or a sense of always kind of being in competition with those around you, siblings, for example, or, you know, just needing to like live up to a certain expectation, that it's almost just created this frequency of like dancing from situation to situation, not being comfortable kind of with yourself, with who you truly are, which ties into this idea of like radical acceptance, radical self-acceptance, becoming that beloved to yourself first and foremost, showering yourself with all of that praise that you were, you know, lacking, or that was conditional, or might have been kind of withdrawn or taken away. You may have really, you know, come up in a situation, in a family situation, or even had like, you know, a particular partner or romantic situation sort of like earlier in life, where if you didn't almost cater to somebody's needs and wants, it's giving me the vibe of like narcissism here. In some way there was like punishment for that, emotional punishment, you know, like the silent treatment almost with the Winter's Dream, or somebody that, you know, with this fiery heart here may have been very kind of like chaotic and volatile, a lot of temper tantrums, and it's something where you're needing to really just transform almost the way in which you're looking at yourself. What within you is causing you to sort of respond and almost minimize your own kind of like sense of value and worth, and really kind of like gauging that based on the responses of others, contorting yourself to kind of like fit into a template of what others would have you to be, versus kind of where you are exactly in the moment. For a lot of you, you may have a very loud self-critic that just sort of picks apart everything. It's like with this net caster, any direction you try to move, you know, and this may even be like the voice of a critical parent that still sort of echoes in your mind. There's always something wrong with everything. It's like the energy of sort of like nitpicking, you know, just being very self-critical, rather than focusing on, you know, your beauty and your worth and your radiance and your intelligence and, you know, your kindness and your humor and your compassion, you know, all of these different things. It's looking for those flaws, looking for those things that are kind of distorted or out of balance in some way. For a lot of you, this may even manifest as kind of being overly critical about your physical body, being very obsessed almost with perfecting that in some kind of way, or, you know, just really focused on like particular flaws, what you perceive as flaws, or, you know, just things that are different from other people, or in some way kind of diminish from what is projected as like this idea of perfection, maybe by society, maybe other people who've been critical, you know, of these things. And that idea of like the self-critic not being good enough in a certain way, needing to like perpetually sort of like transform. It's really this idea of like transmuting that into, you know, instead of what do I need to transform because there's a flaw, you know, transforming kind of the way you're looking at that and embracing all of this, these very unique particles and pieces of yourself, casting that net of love, not outward for validation, but inward in order to embrace yourself more than you have, more authentically than you have been able to do at this point in time. And as related to that, when you sort of, when you harbor that energy and you cultivate that energy within yourself, which for a lot of you, this may be very kind of like difficult work, very nuanced work. It feels to be something that it may almost manifest again as like being very kind of body conscious, like a body dysmorphia almost, where you know, every time you're looking in the mirror, you're looking for those imperfections. You know, the hair that's out of place. You know, the physical feature, the facial feature that's almost flawed or it's different. You're looking for the scars. You're looking for kind of the dents and the dings, rather than sort of like looking at the whole picture, looking at the soul, looking at the energy, and seeing perfection in that moment. So for a lot of you, you know, like mantras can definitely help working on that self-esteem, working on that radical self-acceptance, you know, the fool's embrace, embracing yourself, you know, even kind of just like chanting in the mirror multiple times a day, I love you, which may feel very uncomfortable. We grow up in and live in a culture at this point in time where there's so much like a fearfulness or a hypervigilance against like narcissism, that acts of radical self-love and self-acceptance are often kind of like perceived or colored to be something wrong, or that there's something negative about them. And it's a very different tune, and yet at the same time a fine line between somebody who is just self-absorbed and somebody who is loving themselves, who is absorbed in the energy of acceptance. And so it's almost this idea of like releasing a fear, taking a leap of faith in a direction you would not normally go, which is to, you know, turn that sense of like seeking, that kind of net that's being cast out in the terms of like, where is the next partner? Where is that high vibrational love, or that, you know, the ideal of the healthy love that is going to in some way validate that I am good enough as I am in this moment, that it's casting that net within. Where within me does that love already exist? Where can I find kind of these layers of perfection that truly saturate all that I am? And, you know, when you do that, when you turn that kind of embrace within, you move forth in an energy of confidence and kind of the ever-changing version of you. And that changes the type of person that you are calling forth into your reality. Not somebody who's going to, you know, respond to kind of like, okay, here's somebody that's willing to sort of bargain with their own value, or is willing to sort of take their identity and morph that and transform that and be like that caterpillar in some way to whatever the expectation is. It's you know, giving away a lot of power to sort of like other people and what they are wanting for their ideas of perfection, to where there really is this need to kind of turn that gaze inward and realize the innate perfection of what you already are, flaws and all, in the ever-changing process. And by doing that, it launches a new step in a different direction. It's something that calls in a different frequency of people who are also self-confident, self-loving, self-accepting, rather than seeking that validation without. They are that source of validation within. And that is, it feels like, for, you know, people that are resonating with this, would be, you know, that higher vibration from those who operate on that frequency of, you know, love is something which is conditional. It can be given and taken, and would be operating in that power position to sort of like use what is being defined as love, but it feels to be just sort of like a toxic mirage, almost, but like using that as a pawn, or like a power play in a way. That when you create that sense of security within self, you do not allow others to come forth and to question that, like those who would dare to try that and would come forth and say, well, you should change this, maybe you ought to tone this down, why don't you emphasize this a little bit more, and are, rather than being very kind of like accepting just of a person as they are in a moment. That's sort of where, you know, that kind of with this idea of like a caterpillar, you know, this intuition, you know, using that kind of sixth sense, that spidey sense, to be able to sort of separate people who are, you know, just maybe sort of looking for more of a malleable relationship versus people who are kind of meeting you on the level that you are at and accepting you for where you are in the moment, encouraging growth and applauding where you are again in the moment. So I'm going to get a few more oracle cards just to close out this reading for you. Okay, we have Goddess Aniket, Detachment, I Choose Me. And Goddess Iran, Fate, I Catch a Break. So this is perfect. This Goddess Anuket card, I Choose Me. This needs no further explanation. It really is casting that net of love, that search for validation within. You know, it's the idea even with this net and kind of like catching. It's catching your own vibration and falling in love with that is definitely the way to, you know, manifest in a different kind of partnership, to meet a different kind of partner further along the horizon. It feels like for those of you that this resonate with, you've given pieces of yourself away for quite some time. You may have been really sort of trained or enculturated to do that since childhood even, and it's time to just collect where you are right now and be very nurturing, very greedy with that. You know, understanding your value and worth, that it need not be compromised, it need not be devalued, or, you know, it doesn't kind of require the validation of other people in order to be worth something. And that this will help, almost this idea of, you know, these very like direct sentences. It's like detachment and fate. I catch a break. I choose me. It's kind of like yes and no, you know, within and within reason, with all connections and sort of like, you know, relationships that turn into something long term. There is a degree of give and take. There's a degree of compromise. This is talking about like core personality sort of issues. The idea of like picking at things that are just little quirks, little peculiarities, aspects of what make you you as an individual. And those who would try to almost say that these things weren't good enough. You should be more like this. You should be less of this. Kind of that self-critic manifested outwardly, you know, by kind of allowing the critic within to run its mouth, to try to do its picking, and yet you keep choosing over and over again to embrace yourself, just how lovely you are in this moment, that it changes the type of people you are calling in, or more importantly, resonating with. Rather than people that are going to like take those pieces away, it's calling in people that are, you know, embracing of all their own kind of myriad of pieces, and that you're exchanging with one another. It's this idea of healthy and reciprocal, you know, encouraging growth within one another, rather than the expectation of kind of like one person changes to sort of fit the whims or expectations of the other, or chameleons into a particular circumstance. So I'm going to get some initials, and this can be a first, middle, or last name, or it could spell something out, just whatever resonates for you. Okay, we've got X, V, D, L, G, Y, R, B, E, S, and C. So those are your messages. I hope that they resonated with you and that you enjoyed the reading. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, or share. If you'd like a personal reading, I offer them through my Etsy shop, and there's a link in the description box of the video for that. I offer a variety of pre-recorded video readings, written readings, and channeled letters. Turnaround time on everything is 5 to 7 days from the time of purchase. I also sell handmade jewelry, dream catchers, and sun catchers if you're interested in checking any of that out as well. And I've launched a second channel here on YouTube, which is called Lady of the Dawn Tarot. There's a link in the description box as well as in the channel section of my page. For that, excuse me, gosh, Mercury retrograde. The format over on that channel consists of pick-a-cards and general energy readings related to subjects such as spirituality, ascension, wellness, and self-love. So if any of that sounds interesting, I invite you to check that channel out. I thank you for your support there, as well as for your continued support here on this channel. I hope to see you again in another reading. Please take care and be well. Hi, Group 3. You chose the Sodalite heart. So I'm just going to be using oracle cards for this reading, and I will start with this deck to see what you can do on your healing journey in order to prepare for healthy and reciprocal love to enter your life. We have honor the ending, begin anew, and seek the symbols. So this is definitely giving me kind of this idea of closed doors lead to new beginnings. In some manner, there may be almost like you've been keeping the door open for somebody to return to your life. Maybe a long time has passed and it's time to almost mourn the passing of that connection. A lot of unprocessed, unhealed kind of like grief and sorrow. You may have sort of run the full gambit of emotions about this, anger, denial, confusion, all of these different things. But there's a need to almost move into the space that even if it was something like very horrible relationships that you were in, that might have almost been a sigh of relief to get out of those. There's a particle of grief that needs to be addressed in some manner that is almost keeping you like tethered to these situations. It is that open door that is keeping the free flow of almost like a stagnant energy, or it may even be something that magnetizes in a same or similar kind of series of partners, people that sort of fit that description. Same archetype, different face, different name attached to these same themes, because it's this open chord between some aspect of your past and where you are in the present. And it feels to be something that's almost, it's really like running beneath the radar. It most likely has to do, it can be the idea of like waiting for somebody to return, and that it's just kind of, it's like you're letting a draft in at this point in time, rather than cultivating like warmth within yourself. It's a coldness that is kind of like in the vibration. It's in the frequency. It may be something that almost like with this hand, or this sort of like hamsa here, it's almost kind of like putting up a wall or a barricade toward others that is saying, I am unavailable. I'm unavailable for deep intimacy. I'm unavailable for warmth and connectivity. And so only those, who will dare venture towards you, if anyone at all. Some of you may be in an extended period of being signal, because there's almost just this like closed off energy that you might not even notice that you are emanating. For some of you, again, this idea of like just holding on to hope for something that is just it's not reviving. It's past the point of no return. To delay any longer in that energy is just, it's blockading. It's a log jam for other types of experiences that want to come in. That it's almost like you remaining anchored and tethered to a moment in time where something was put on pause, something came to a closure, and it's a degree of kind of like denial, in a sense, of the new beginning, kind of going into a cocoon phase but refusing to exit that, putting up the hand, putting up the walls against that, almost like denying or ignoring divine blessings or signs which are already there, kind of like pointing the direction into something different. And you're still kind of like fixated or focused on the past in some way, holding out that hope that it might be, you know, time to surrender, time to let that go, and to mourn that process of letting go as well. But for those of you where it's kind of like the other aspect of these kind of energies, where it almost feels like a very kind of difficult, a deeply wounding, a deeply almost like a traumatic relationship that you were in, a very volatile relationship that you were in, something that was very chaotic, that it might have almost just been a relief to exit that situation. Though in some way there's still a tether to that kind of core of resentment, or maybe even some fear that again is kind of, it's blocking the blessings from entering. It's a sense of like not wanting to step forth into that new beginning, not taking those steps, lingering in that energy of just like that unprocessed pain, that confusion about like, why did this happen to me? Almost seeking too much for the lessons in some way, lingering in that energy, and in a very noble pursuit of like, I want to learn from this experience. I want to grow from this so I don't repeat the pattern, but that it's almost like lingering too long in that, and so the pattern just keeps repeating itself. You keep magnetizing in disappointment in a sense, or nothing, because it was almost like a wall, a self-protective cocoon was needed to be put in place. It's almost bringing to mind the idea of needing to kind of shut down to heal from something, some experience of the past, but getting very stuck in the loop of the healing journey. Healing is like an onion. There's layers, but at a certain point in time, you have to kind of like rise beyond that labyrinth, or it just becomes like this perpetual sort of like picking and finding new wounded aspects. It's a process that's almost in a way never complete. We always have to revisit our personal skeletons and kind of the ghosts of the past, and the wounds and the scar tissue within us at different periods of time, but we come to that from a different lens, with more wisdom, with more life experience. But it's almost like standing in the way of stepping forth into that, gaining those very different experiences, a fear of almost, being proven wrong, maybe if you're holding on to certain ideas about love, even just very unconsciously in some manner, or even kind of tying into the idea of growth can only be accomplished through kind of difficulty or suffering in a sense, or, kind of misinterpreting the view of like a passionate connection to something that's very volatile in a way. It's these old kind of like scriptures or scripts, which are, written within, based most likely on things that, it came to an end because it needed to. That was a healthy choice, or that happened and it concluded, almost like rejection's divine protection in a certain sense. But that it's kind of like some of you are sort of lingering in that vibration, whatever that situation was, whatever was kind of like going on with you at the time, and you're kind of not, it's almost like remaining very trapped in that past, not allowing yourself to take flight in the direction, doing all that work, setting all those intentions of, I want to call in this healthy and like higher vibrational love, and then the door opens, the signs point you in the direction of that, but sort of refusing to take those steps, refusing to take a chance, bringing along that baggage of kind of like the worst case scenarios, which it feels like create self-fulfilling prophecies, or just sort of a void of experience. Because you're meant to kind of, it's like coming out of a caterpillar stage into a butterfly. You're meant to take the wisdom. You're not meant to take kind of the list of things to be hyper vigilant about with you, that's just kind of like weighing down your progress, or kind of the trajectory toward these blessings and love that are very much available to you. So let's see what else you need to know about this. Okay, we have overflow, overwhelm, and plenty. Horseman, herald of change. Dances on one foot, balancing act. And many masks, the authentic self. So this idea of like the many masks, that is also tying in and reinforcing that notion of similar archetypes, different characters showing up. You know, same kind of like theme, or almost this sort of self-fulfilling prophecy that keeps happening. And it's a sense of almost being invited to sort of remove a version of yourself, maybe this kind of need to self-protect and heal, whatever damage was incurred in like this previous connection or previous connections, plural, that it's almost in a way become like an armament or a form of the narrative, the way in which you define and kind of expect in a certain sense to experience love, or it's things, it's like tells that you're almost too hypervigilant looking for, seeking out kind of what to avoid, and in essence kind of like missing the nuance of these differences, these different experiences, you know, this path that kind of leads you to something else. It's just sort of circling round and round, being very overwhelmed, being very, you know, overfilled. It's like oversaturated in this energy of healing, or being in this process of kind of just like holding on to a lot of embedded grief, in a sense, tears that need to be cried that have been stuffed or stifled, especially if it's something where, you know, it was a very kind of like volatile connection in a variety of ways. You may have felt very unsafe in that connection. Some of you may really be on like in this mask of almost in survival mode, and there's a tenderness which is needing to happen within you, where you allow yourself to, you know, feel that suffering, feel that fear, acknowledge that, how visceral that is, how that may be, you know, triggered and has forever in some way changed your at least present ability to experience intimacy or to trust other people. It's this idea of like acknowledging all these aspects of self, the scars that you are left with, you know, even just on like a vibrational level as a result of these experiences. Even the scars of kind of like waiting for someone to return, only they never return home. You know, the idea of like the horseman who rides off into the sunset with promises of, I will be back one day, and that day never comes. There's a need to kind of like bury something in some way, you know, release the hope of an expectation of outcome, positive or negative, and really open up to this idea of like mystery in a sense. This idea of horse also talks, you know, with the herald of change, it's tying into the idea of this cocoon, this butterfly, and beginning anew, stepping forth into, you know, where you're kind of like, you've embedded that discernment within yourself, but it's not what you're leading with. You know, the idea of like dancing on one foot, it's a different foot now that you're putting forward, where yes, you've had your experiences of the past. Yes, some of these things have been very heartbreaking, very disappointing, very toxic, very difficult to overcome. Some of these things may have changed you forever in ways that, you know, you've healed or accessed that to a certain degree, but it's unknown at this point in time if, you know, this is just kind of the forever way that you are now, forever changed as a result of these experiences, or if this is something that, you know, in time, another version of you will emerge, honoring that unknown part, maybe even frustration within yourself. If you were in, you know, in situations where it was a lot of fear-based energy, there's some kind of like sacred rage that needs to be, embodied in a healthy and positive manner that is almost like the creative fuel that kind of pivots you out of parts of yourself, energetically speaking, these tethers that are sort of like held to previous narratives. You don't live there anymore. That is not your reality anymore, and it has no place in your future. For a lot of you, you're very good at discerning like what toxicity looks like for you personally, how that has shown up in many masks in your life up to this point in time. And so it's a matter of like stepping out, you know, the balancing act, trusting that you've collected enough data at this point in time that you don't need to belabor the point anymore. It's this idea of kind of like of choosing freedom, choosing a different path, taking those declarative steps. For a lot of you, you know, the idea of like seeking the symbols, nudges, guidance that you've been given to, you know, change your life in certain ways, maybe change location, just something that is needing to be sort of altered in the way, even like the self-talk, the things that you're focusing on. If you've been almost on this overload, this overflow of the self-healing journey, it may be time to like wean yourself or just go cold turkey from that. You know, just say healing is a process. It's an onion. I'll revisit this. It will be brought back to me at some point to kind of dig a little bit deeper. But for now, I'm okay where I am. I'm great where I am. I'm better than I was, and that's enough. And moving forward, you know, where you're not, it's almost like getting stuck in a healing journey continues to give power to those experiences of hurt, pain, loss, and sorrow, that it continues to sort of feed that, feed those experiences. It continues to kind of like keep those as mile markers in time and in your life. And it's this energy of letting these things dissolve, letting these things be buried. Honor that ending by embracing the newness, shifting your direction towards something else, growth-oriented energy versus what you're needing to chip away and fix and heal in order to be prepared for healthy and reciprocal love. So I'm going to get a few more cards just to close out this reading for you. Okay, we have baths of Aphrodite, nourishment. I bathe in the sacred springs of love. And Goddess Wraith, quest. I am divinely guided. So these emotional energies, this moon, this watery energy, this is tying into this idea of, you know, some tears that need to be cried, sacred rage, with this kind of like dragon here sort of coming out of the side of this this card, and it's tying into you know, finding a proper outlet for that. Maybe this is, you know, through creative dance, through ecstatic dance, where you are tapping into that vein of sensation, that particular emotional current, and you are extracting it. You're sort of purging it out of yourself into the energetic environment around you to be transmuted into whatever it may be transmuted into, but most importantly to remove it from yourself, to cleanse and purify yourself. Step into more of an energy of softness, into frailty, into vulnerability. For a lot of you who might be resonating with this group, you know, that might be difficult for you. Maybe having a little bit of, or a lot of PTSD as the result of what you've experienced in romantic connections in the past, and it may have put you on kind of like this hyper vigilant mode. Your guard has been up. You may have been in a very masculine oriented energy of just action and push and you know, just kind of very like a stonewall, and just energetically speaking, and you're being encouraged to step into this place of frailty within self. That transition may be very difficult. This doesn't mean let the walls down, let the guard down, and just let whoever's at the gate come on in. You know, you've worked too hard for that up to this point in time, but it's acknowledging within yourself, creating a safe space within yourself that is that safe haven. It is that harbor that says you don't live in those circumstances anymore. The battle is over. The need to heal and kind of like pick up the pieces. You've done a very beautiful job. You are good enough as you are in this moment. You are safe moving forward. These experiences did not break you, but have strengthened you far beyond your perception of your capacity to endure. And it is from this energy of this, you know, quiet, this like soft and strong confidence that you are then able to take action steps. You know, the idea of like intuitive and divinely guided ways in which you are nudged to either redirect your focus, new environments you are called to, maybe, you know, a move in general, a change of scenery, a change of location, you know, a call to like redecorate, restructure something in your physical world, you know, getting rid of things that are just like trigger points or reminders, you know, little mementos, little souvenirs, things that even if it's something that you're kind of like holding on to hope for someone to return, or to see the light, to recognize your value and worth, and kind of like make amends, there may be these little tokens or reminders that keep you in this energy of waiting. It like keeps a very stuck vibration. It holds on to that wound within. And so the guidance here is really just to clear that out. That might be very difficult to release these things if you're not ready to fully discard them, box them up, put them away somewhere elsewhere, even, you know, away from your immediate environment, if that's possible for you, you know, where you're not gonna so readily just sort of tap into these things. You're not just gonna like dive back into that very wounded place. And also this kind of energy of just accepting the healing that you've done at this point in time. Give yourself a break. Give yourself that sigh of relief. It's a lot of you may just be really trying to like push, and I'm going to heal, I'm going to grow, I'm going to fix this, I'm going to understand these patterns, I'm going to do better, rather than kind of allowing the progress that you've made to take root. It's almost bringing to mind the idea of like overwatering seeds in a way, and it's important to step into this energy at this time of like allowing the work that you've done to really take root, to become known, to become articulated in your vibration, so that, you know, this healing, these kind of aspects of yourself that you've sewn up, that kind of scar tissue can form. You can, you know, feel a little less kind of exposed in a way, a little less raw. And it is from that place of having put yourself back together, having put your pieces back together differently this time around, that you are then able to step forth in a new vibration and kind of this perfect fabric of, you know, what you have healed from, and what that healing has looked like. And that allows you to call in, you know, somebody that resonates with kind of this version of you, you know, the yin and yang articulated version of you, rather than, you know, somebody who's just kind of like overly lingering in kind of, you know, one aspect of their personal energy or another. It's all about accepting the balance that you have at this point in time, and really trusting that, you know, further down the road, when and if necessary, there will be time enough to sort of address these things. The door's open. You have the opportunity to move in a different direction and experience something different in love and romance. And it's really just almost a matter of like, the gate's already open. It's just you who's kind of not taking that first step out in a new direction. So I'm going to get some initials, and this can be a first, middle, or last name, or it can spell something out, just whatever resonates for you. Okay, we've got F, G, S, U, W, P, B, C, Y, R, D, and K. So those are your messages. I hope that they resonated with you and that you enjoyed the reading. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, or share. If you'd like a personal reading, I offer them through my Etsy shop, and there's a link in the description box of the video for that. I offer a variety of pre-recorded video readings, written readings, and channeled letters. Turnaround time on everything is 5 to 7 days from the time of purchase. I also sell handmade jewelry, dream catchers, and sun catchers if you're interested in checking any of that out as well. And I've launched a second channel here on YouTube, which is called Lady of the Dawn Tarot. There's a link in the description box as well as in the channel section of my page for that. The format over there consists of pick-a-cards and general energy readings related to subjects such as spirituality, ascension, wellness, and self-love. So if any of that sounds interesting, I invite you to check that channel out. I thank you for your support there, as well as for your continued support here on this channel. I hope to see you again in another reading. Please take care and be well. Hi, Group 4. We chose the Opalite heart. So I'm just going to be using oracle cards for this reading, and I'll start with this deck to see what you can be focusing on at this point in time in your self-healing, self-love journey in order to prepare yourself for high vibrational, healthy love in the future. Okay, and we have reveal the lies, face your dragons, and hold your ground. So this hold your ground card is super popular in this reading. It came out in group 1 and group 2. So if you felt drawn to watch either of those or both of those, you may want to do so after this group. There could be additional messages there for you. But it's almost bringing to mind the idea of looking at the places you fear the most and finding power within those aspects of self. It's almost tying into this idea as well of kind of ways in which you may have contorted yourself or dimmed your light in a certain manner in order to fit and accommodate what you perceive that others may be looking for in a partnership. Ways in which you compromised your morals, your values, you know, you were that kind of yes man or yes woman or yes person, and, you know, just kind of absorbing the identity of others, really losing yourself in connections. And this may have been the case of something that has happened repeatedly. It could have been something where, you know, you leave connections with kind of this very icky feeling, this sense of having really stooped, having settled for crumbs, having not lived up to maybe what you've tried to call in. Some of you may also really have this tendency to almost like settle for the first thing that comes along. You may be really good at manifesting, very clear on you know, the things that you're looking for in a partner, the qualities that you're wanting, that definition of that high vibrational love. And it's almost like when the suggestion of that comes in, or something that like almost fits that criteria, there's an energy of just settling, like, okay, well, this must be that manifestation, can't get everything, so I'll just take this in a way. And then it's almost something that like tears you down a notch, or it keeps you very limited, or it's got like a ceiling to it. There's like a finite growth to where you've been maybe needing to like start again and start again and start again, and a bit of frustration as far as that's concerned, where you may be really questioning kind of your ability to pick partners, you know, questioning if there's even love out there for you, if you're just kind of doomed to repeat these cycles in some manner. And so it's really tying in with hold your ground in this particular reading of just wait, pause, don't take the first offer that comes in. Really kind of like revealing the lies is tying into your intuition being key. For a lot of you, this may be something where red flags have come up and you've deliberately ignored these things. These may have been very obvious red flags, things that have come through very subtly, just something feeling off, stories not really matching, inconsistencies, just feeling of like funny business, something you couldn't really put your finger on, even a sense of like physical dis-ease, things coming through in dreams, things coming through in signs and synchronicities, maybe even like divination you've done about certain individuals that are kind of like pointing in a negative direction. And it's almost this energy of kind of like, well, I'll prove that wrong, I'll fix that, that doesn't need to be the case. Maybe, you know, like questioning your own intuition in a sense, or almost just not accepting the plain truth of what's provided, that maybe what you're kind of the basket you're trying to put your eggs in is not the basket for you. And a lot of just kind of coming back to the start, coming back to the same kind of like grounded root energy, but not fully pivoting beyond kind of like a necessary testing phase in a sense. Because often when we are delivered our blessings and what we're trying to call in, the universe will almost provide something, not in like a mocking way, but just in a sense of to calibrate to that order that we've put in, that request that we put in. It's like, okay, we're serving this. Is this what you want? And rather than saying this is a little undercooked, it's a little overdressed, the side isn't what I'd ordered, the substance on this sandwich, I wanted vegetables and there's meat here, or I ordered fish and this is a salad, instead of kind of like sending that back and being very just kind of adamant, very firm, believing in kind of, the core essence of what it is you're trying to call in, what your definition of healthy and reciprocal love is. It's almost just like, okay, well, this is what's been delivered. So I'll take that because I don't want to be without. So for some of you, this may be even like a fear of being alone, this idea of like face your dragons, face your fears. A fear of abandonment where you're kind of putting up with things that are less than you deserve, simply because, you're wanting to kind of like keep a partnership intact, keep a person happy. Some of you may be very, very much in need almost of kind of some true alone time. It may be almost like being too brisk in this energy of wanting to move in the direction of a new connection, especially after maybe times where you've been thwarted or catfished or misled in some way, or you hadn't followed your intuition, your instincts. And rather than unpacking that, allowing that to digest, allowing yourself to, kind of sit with that and learn what you need to learn, adjust accordingly. It's almost this idea of like, well, I better get back on that horse. I can't let any more time pass. That was already a waste of time. So I better get right back out there, where you're needing to kind of each of these experiences, there's something to learn from that. It's the idea here as well of like there's no need to rush, and you may be in a bit of a hurry. The idea of like reveal the lies. Time is an illusion. Like, yes, it's a real thing because we live in the material world. We're all kind of like tied to time in a human sense, but in terms of things like the frequency of love and true love, high vibrational love, that's something that is not on mankind's clock. That is something that runs on a very different scale of measurement. And it might be something where, you're kind of very, very tethered to this idea of like, I must, find my person. I must kind of encounter that this year. I must do this before it's too late. And it's this energy of hastiness and kind of like rushing, not reading the fine print, ignoring a lot of these kind of like, nudges or very sort of like loud signs for you that say you're going the wrong way, and rather than sort of like heeding that and pulling back, it's just moving forward in directions that are kind of like counterproductive unnecessarily for yourself. And this is not to be an energy of sort of like, okay, now you have to chastise yourself for this. It's just kind of encouraging to alchemize in a certain way that kind of that enthusiasm, that sense of urgency to kind of like redirecting focus. If you tend to kind of just move from situation to situation, catch your breath in between, check in a bit with self. If it's something where you're leaping too quickly into the development of intimacy with people, you're allowing people in too quickly, you're not vetting people out, you're just kind of again, allowing them into the energy field too quickly, then this is again something to, be more just kind of trusting in those instinctual nudges, which will come in very immediately, rather than trying to like sift beneath that, give people the full benefit of the doubt and kind of mistrust yourself. There's almost this idea of energy doesn't lie. And for a lot of you, that might be kind of the culprit in this situation, is trying to almost turn something into something that it's not, which could be leading to like a lot of situations that failure to launch, it just kind of like grounds you down in this energy of disappointment, or it's something which is just it's not pivoting, it's not high vibrational, it's like a low vibrational energy, very like fear-based or toxic in a manner. So I'm going to get some cards from this deck to see what else you need to know about this. Okay, we have Eye of the Needle, intentionality. The Crossing, initiation. Moon Maiden, new beginnings. And Fool's Embrace, transmuting pain. So this Eye of the Needle is definitely, as well as the Crossing, is really tying into this idea of trusting that intuition and maybe vetting people a little more closely. That there's too much of a sense of, you know, creating kind of a beginning with someone that maybe is not meant to be that close into your circle. It's too focused on also this energy of kind of like, well, this can be changed. My love will change this person. My love will change this situation. Rushing too quickly into that newness, too quickly from sort of like disappointment to disappointment, where, you know, kind of after maybe a series of repeating patterns of this, the journey needs to be within in a certain manner. That it might not just be that, you know, the universe is kind of like against you in some manner, or you're never going to meet the right guy, you're never going to meet the right girl, they're just not out there, all the good ones are taken, you know, whatever that kind of like narrative is, it's too late, you know, time's running out, just all of that, that it's this energy of just kind of like slowing down and going within, really tapping into that kind of, fear almost of like oblivion, a fear of being alone, a discomfort in being with oneself. This Crossing card also came out in group 1, so another confirmation that there could be almost additional messages there for you, like a crossover kind of a reading in a certain way, to where there's almost like, it's just the energy of like rushing, in a sense, that this high vibrational, this healthy love that you're seeking, it's not going to be the first thing that comes along. It's almost like crossing through a series of obstacles or a series of like checkpoints to reach that. It's not something that's just like a rocket that's going to launch in a particular direction and there you are at that destination. But it's like steps that are needing to be taken. It's you know, weaving a different pattern for yourself. You know, a lot more trust, it feels like, that is needed in kind of the universe preparing and serving up to you the manifestation that you've desired. And a lot of this is perceivable through intuition, which may be something that has been kind of put on the back burner to a certain extent. There may also be this kind of like, it's the energy almost of like serial monogamy in a sense too, where there could just be, again, like overlooking a lot of red flags within self, you know, very fearful, like with the new beginning and, you know, the fool's embrace, like the fool's journey, that kind of like leap of faith into a new direction, you know, a fear of like having to start over, having to go back to the drawing board, having to begin again. And so it's a bit of sort of like making excuses or trying to make a shoe fit or a circumstance fit that is not actually yours to own. It's not that proper accompaniment to you in a certain way. And so a sense of almost, you know, stepping into sort of a new way of approaching this, a new way of how you're showing up into relationships. You know, maybe even creating, after these experiences, a new vision board for yourself. You know, a lot of you may have even just been focused on kind of like ego-based or sort of like core qualities of what you're looking for. And there's this energy of needing to sort of like go within and tap into more aspects of the soul, aspects of vibration, aspects of energy that what you're truly seeking, like beyond sort of the physical capsule that this will come in a sense. There's a need to kind of like revise or create a new plan for yourself, map out a new course, and some of that can really be sought within. If you're seeking like a counterpart for yourself, a healthy high vibration, what does that look like within you? What are those qualities within you that you are loving of, that you're, you know, embracing, that these are like high value qualities, and, you know, putting that in your intention basket, setting that out to the universe, and remaining very open of kind of like, what that will show up as, something very kind of, maybe unexpected, sort of like the underdog turns up and they're everything that you'd wanted, or somebody who doesn't exactly fit all of those kind of like core surface level qualities that you're looking for, and yet at the, deep emotional level, at the spiritual level, they are that balance for you. So it's a bit of sort of transmuting or changing or altering what you're looking for, what you're leading with, what you're kind of allowing in. It's a bit of kind of like a pause is needed, a step back, check in with self, not ignoring those very glaring red flags or the subtle red flags, but really using those things to educate you as you are, navigating your way. It feels like, it's the energy of like, it's not necessarily even a straight shot to that high vibrational, healthy love, but it's more of a winding path. There are detours that need to be taken, and rather than just getting frustrated and sort of leaning into apathy, or just again like a tendency to just kind of collect whatever comes towards you and try to shape that in a sense into what you're looking for and make excuses like it's good enough, it's close enough in a sense. It's remaining very determined and fixed, keeping your eye on the prize, really just kind of detaching as best as possible from this idea of, you're walking a razor's edge of time and it's now or never, that it's some kind of like fear of missing out may be sort of the energy here as well, that is needing to be healed or at least addressed within yourself, as kind of why sort of the vetting or the discernment process is a little bit, there's need for improvement with that in a way. So I'm going to get a few more oracle cards just to close this out. Okay, so we've got Goddess Minerva, Intelligence. I harness my full potential. And Goddess of the Sea, Storm. Through the storm, my inner sea is calm. Yeah, so this is definitely that encouragement to like go within, seek that counsel within yourself, rather than just kind of perceiving on the outward package. It's these core qualities. It's high vibration. It is not a matter of ego in a sense. It's allowing that intelligence of your intuition to help be that beacon by which you are navigating through this process of like locating that person that is that best match for you. Not good enough, not this will do, or I can fix this, I can work with this, maybe this person will grow and evolve and change, this is a good starting point, hopefully things get better with time, or any ways in which you're kind of just like settling or compromising or devaluing yourself in a certain manner in order to, it's almost kind of just like a misinterpretation of things that maybe aren't that forever person. It's something that's just kind of that energy of the test in a certain way, and you're needing to kind of look at these experiences. If it's kind of a drought, there's not a lot coming in, and that might be putting you in panic mode. It's again this urge to really just sort of like go within, that there may be some kind of like a fear of abandonment, a fear of missing out or being left out in the cold that is needing to be healed. It's needing to be addressed. You're needing to embrace that. You're needing to explore those possibilities. What if it is just me, myself, and I? What is that going to look like? What if these other dreams and goals that I have for what my life will look like, my future, the things that I want to build and develop, what if that's not part of my destiny in this lifetime? What then? It's a need to kind of like cultivate this sense of comfort within, calm those seas of panic within self that say, this must happen now. It must happen according to my timeline. timeline. Everybody else around me is coupled up. You know, I'm getting older. It's the pickings are getting even slimmer. Like I don't understand. And it's this energy of, you know, just allowing that there's some aspect of like needing to recognize that your cup is full with or without a partner to kind of like match or validate that. So a bit of kind of just like a neediness or an insecurity in a certain way is needing to be counteracted, counterbalanced, understanding that you're good enough. If you're standing alone or walking with somebody who is your perfect complement, you know, you're still you are still that fullness within yourself. So it's the perception of time and the relationship to time and a timeline where there needs to be almost more openness with that. Or even something where you've got kind of too rigid of an idea of what that healthy high vibrational love looks like, and there's a need to kind of like loosen that stance, open up to the unexpected, the idea of like the fool's journey, the new moon, and kind of this, you know, harnessing the full potential. Your manifestation may be way too specific, and that's why, you know, it's pulling in sort of experiences and people, or maybe even a lack, maybe even nothing at all, because it's too fine. It's like the eye of the needle. It's too much of a pinpoint. You know, you may be missing just that key phrase. I would like to call the following things into my life this or better. It's that or better that's kind of like that missing component that might require sort of throwing a couple of those fish back out to the sea for somebody else to catch. You know, that may kind of show up in a time, in a manner that is different from what you've expected, from what you've kind of ordered or demanded, or what you've expected, you know, out of the situation. In a sense, it's an energy of allowing the free form creativity of the universe to take hold, trusting that something will be delivered to you in the time and manner that's most applicable, that will really, you know, fit and fulfill you and nourish you on many different levels. But it's not necessarily going to be, you know, that first thing that shows up, and it's certainly not going to be something where you're needing to, you know, excuse away or ignore or stuff or suppress any kind of like red flags, any kind of like instinct within yourself that says something's off. It's, you know, not going to it's not going to ask you or even inspire you to kind of like compromise yourself, you know, morally or in terms of like your values in a certain way, and you know, where you're just kind of like stepping into this energy of agreeing for the sake of agreeing. That's not that healthy and high vibrational love. And it's really like the key component is embracing that unknown, embracing that quiet, you know, calming that storm of urgency within self, and trusting that the universe is hard at work. They'll get your order right. It may take a few times of sending it back to the kitchen, you know, but eventually it will come to you, and your journey will continue to unfold in the way in which it's meant to. You are entitled to have that very beautiful love story within and without, but it requires more of like an element of discernment in a certain way, and trust, in order to be able to, you know, have that very precise vision to recognize, not physically, but on an energetic level, what it is that you're seeking. So I'm going to get some initials, and this can be a first, middle, or last name, or it can spell something out, just whatever resonates for you. We've got L, C, H, S, Y, I, T, and R. So those are your messages. I hope that they resonated with you and that you enjoyed the reading. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, or share. If you'd like a personal reading, I offer them through my Etsy shop, and there's a link in the description box of the video for that. I offer a variety of pre-recorded video readings, written readings, and channeled letters. Turnaround time on everything is 5 to 7 days from the time of purchase. I also sell handmade jewelry, dream catchers, and sun catchers if you're interested in checking any of that out as well. And I've launched a second channel here on YouTube, which is called Lady of the Dawn Tarot. There's a link in the description box as well as in the channel section of my page for that. The format over there consists of pick-a-cards and general energy readings related to subjects such as spirituality, ascension, wellness, and self-love. So if any of that sounds interesting, I invite you to check that channel out. I thank you for your support there as well as for your continued support here on this channel. I hope to see you again in another reading. Please take care and be well.